Now, ir and ser in the preterite are a little bit tricky because they share the same conjugations. So no matter which verb you're using in the preterite, either ir or ser, you have to use these 6 conjugations. Now, when you use these two verbs, ir and ser, the context is going to give away which one is being used. For example, if we are working with ir, you're going to see that the sentence will probably have a and then some sort of place. Because remember that ir means to go. So in the past, if I want to say I went to the mall, I need the word a in Spanish to get to, and then you'll see the place name. So that would be the giveaway that you're working with the verb ir. What about ser? Well, when I teach ser, I teach it as to be, but I also use this little acronym, doctore, since we have 2 verbs in Spanish that means to be. So these are all the situations when you would use the verb ser. And here they are here. So if we see a description, so that's something visual, like the building is tall. An occupation, she is a teacher. Characteristic, she is kind. Time, it's 2 o'clock. Date, it's the 17th of April. Origin, she is from Spain. Relationship, she is my friend. Or an event. Something you could say is being held instead of the verb to be would qualify here. So something like the concert is at the garden. If I see any of these situations, I know automatically that I'm going to be working with ser. Those tell me these are my context clues that I'm working with one verb over the other. And that's how we use ir versus ser. Okay, let's take a look. Mi madre blank al supermercado ayer por piña. Well, if your subject is madre, that's the person that's doing the action, we're going to put fue, because it would be like ella for a conjugation. Let's look at the next one. Tú, muy cómico durante la competencia anoche. Sujeto, tú. Por eso la conjugación es fuiste. Y la tercera. Las pruebas la semana pasada muy difíciles. Las pruebas es el sujeto. Por eso la conjugación es fueron, porque tenemos pruebas. Now let's go back and figure out what we are looking at. Is an example that uses ir or ser. Mi madre fue al supermercado ayer por piña. Well, I've got al, so that gives me to, and then I've got a place, supermercado. So this first one is a situation that uses ir, to go. Tú fuiste muy cómico durante la competencia anoche. Muy cómico. Cómico is funny. That's a characteristic. Characteristics go with ser. Las pruebas la semana pasada fueron muy difíciles. What were the quizzes? Difficult. Difficult is also a characteristic. So that would be an example using ser. Now, in the preterite, this list of verbs here are spell change verbs. Remember, they're irregular verbs that get brand new stems in all their conjugations and different endings than other preterite verbs. So like ESTAR becomes estuve, PONER pooed, TENER tuve, and so forth. You can check that out in my other video. But for now, I want to focus on how do you use these in context in the preterite? How do you recognize not just what they conjugate as, but when to use each one? Well, we have to take it back to what they mean, and you've learned that in past classes. So ESTAR means to be. Remember, we use it in situations that happen with place, position, location, action, condition, or emotion. When those situations pop up, we use the verb ESTAR. Poder means to be able to. Think of it as the word can in English. Tener means to have. HACER, to do or to make. PONER, to put or to place. DECIR, to say or to tell. Traer, to bring. VENIR, to come. The first step in being able to use these in in context is you have to know what they translate to, because that way you can look at the sentence and translate and see if it makes sense or not what you're trying to say. Did you choose the right verb? On the next couple slides, I'm going to look into a couple of these verbs that have situational things you should be aware of when you try to use them in context, beyond just what they mean in English. So I'm going to look at ESTAR, I'm going to look at PONER, I'm going to look at TENER, and I'm also going to look at a weird rule that TRIER and VENIR have. So keep going to take a look at those oddities that you should be aware of with these verbs. But again, you have to know what they mean first. If you know what they mean, you'll better be able to use them in context. So if you're working with the verb ESTAR, for example, like I said, whatever comes next has to be from place. So that could be position, location, action, condition, or emotion. So what are you going to see? What are examples of these? Position would be like the pencil was next to the folder. It's going to use a prepositional phrase of some kind to compare the location of two things in relationship to one another. If you see location, you'll see something like the class was in the lab. In the lab indicates their location. Something a little bigger than position. Action we're not going to worry about for now for this tense. Condition, she was tired. So remember, people have conditions. There are things that are physical, like being tired or sick, but objects do too, like the window could be opened or closed. That's a condition of the window. Emotion, he was happy. So if you see anything that was or were, and the next word comes from something from place, then you know that you need the verb ESTAR. For how you feel or where you are, always use the verb ESTAR. What about the verb PONER? Well, PONER is typically, not always, but typically, you're going to find it next to an infinitive. So if you're working with some sort of missing word and then another action, more often than not, it's probably going to use PONER. So an example would be, no pude hacer mi tarea. I couldn't do my homework. I've got two verbs side by side. Because PONER is can or can't, or could or couldn't in the past, it works perfectly if the next word is an infinitive. So watch out for that, because if you're trying to say can or can't, and then an infinitive, PONER is the verb you need to choose. TENER is a verb we have used for a long time, because it means to have. It's a very easy verb, popular verb to use for things. Now, anytime you need some form of had, I had a project last week, that's when we're using the preterite version of this verb. But TENER's special. It has special phrases we need to be aware of that exist with it that might come up in context. One of the special formulas that TENER uses that is more prominent to come up in this situation with the preterite is TENER K plus infinitive. Remember that when we use this formula, we're expressing that someone has to do something. So whatever the second verb is, that's what that person has to do. So for example, yo tuve que estudiar. I had to study. Now because this is a set formula, the K has to be there. So if you're working in context and you have fill in the blanks, let's say, and there's a space and then a K and then an infinitive, that should be a big clue to you that you need TENER, because it's expressing that someone has to do something, or had to do something in this case, because we're working in the past. Now the last two that are a little funky are TRIER and VENIR. Their meanings are pretty straightforward to bring and to come, but in Spanish they're used very situationally. So for both of these, there's an odd rule we have to keep in mind. So whenever we use these, the speaker must be at the location they're referring to. So, for example, if I want to say someone's bringing a cake to the party, I have to already be at the party if I want to use TRIER. I have to be at the location that something is being brought. So an example would be, ya estoy aquí, I'm already here, pero Anita trae la pizza, but Anita's bringing the pizza. The speaker's wherever they're heading, and Anita's on her way here. So it's okay to use traer. But if, let's say, the speaker wasn't at that location, you can't use this verb. You actually would need to use llevar to bring instead. Venir is similar. So venir again means to come. You have to be at the location to use this word. ¿Vienes aquí después de las clases hoy? Are you coming here after classes today? The speaker's already at that location, and they're wondering if the other person is going to come there as well. They're at the location, so again, they can use this verb. If they are not at the location, instead, they would use the verb ir, to go. Spanish is really specific about these, so again, the speaker has to be at the location to be able to use these two verbs. For English speakers, it's a little weird because we don't take into account the speaker's location when we use these, but in Spanish, it's something to keep in mind when you're choosing to use these irregular preterite verbs. Okay, so let's take a look at these sample fill-ins. And the verbs we can choose from are up here at the top. So we've got HACER, DECIR, PONER, ESTAR, PODER, and TENER. Mi amigo no hacer la tarea ayer. So my friend didn't blank to do the homework yesterday. Well, this is an infinitive. And we said that one of the verbs to watch out for next to infinitives is poder, because it's like saying could or couldn't. Would that make sense here? My friend couldn't do the homework yesterday? Absolutely. So we're going to put pudo. Because something sick. Now, sick is a condition, so we know that we're going to use the verb estar. So, who was sick? The friend. So we'll put estuvo. My friend couldn't do the homework yesterday because he was sick. Muy bien. I, something, to clean the bathroom before leaving last night or before going out last night. Now, I said in my review to watch out for a space and then K and then an infinitive. What verb usually has that structure? Tener, to talk about what someone usually has to do. So yo tuve que limpiar el baño. So I had to clean the bathroom before leaving last night. Muy bien. Maria and you, something, the project on Friday. We're going to turn it in tomorrow. Well, I think HACER would be a great fit here. Maria and you did the project on Friday? Yeah, that makes sense. So Maria y tú hicieron el proyecto el viernes. Nice. Señora, I something my homework in the homework bin. Sounds like the person turned it in, or they placed it in the bin. That would be the verb poner. So, señora, yo puse mi tarea en la caja de tarea. So you, something, to Paco, what we, blank, in class without him today, right? Yes, I explained the project to him. Well, we haven't used DECIR at all yet, and that means to say or to tell. Would that fit here? Tú dijiste a Paco? So you told Paco what, yeah, so far that fits. We blank in class without him yesterday. What we did in class. So see, I'm using the meaning of the verb to figure out what's missing. We did in class without him yesterday, or today, right? Yes, I explained the project to him. Perfect. So I'm using a combination of techniques here. I'm translating the sentences for myself so I know what the rest of it's saying. I'm trying to identify keywords that give away what verbs to use. And I'm going over what the verbs mean so I can figure out, oh, HACER would make perfect sense here, or whatever other verb might be practical. So again, take the time to review what do these verbs mean, and look out for those helpful clues when you're trying to use them in context.